My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 42 years old, and I live in Asheville, North Carolina. I work as a nurse at a local hospital. People say I'm resilient, that I can handle anything life throws at me. But the truth is, sometimes resilience is just another word for being forced to survive pain you never asked for. I never thought my strength would be tested the way it was after my husband died. I never thought my daughters would be called bastards in front of strangers. And I never thought people who claimed to be Christians would dare to blame two teenage girls for their father's death. That's the kind of cruelty you don't forget. That's the kind of wound that never really heals. But what they didn't know is that I had my own kind of truth. And one day, that truth will be open for everyone to see right inside their church hymn books. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I met my husband, Daniel, when I was 23. Back then, I thought he was the man who would give me the world. Tall, charming, good with words. He knew how to make a woman feel like she was the only one in the room. But behind that smile, behind the charisma, there were secrets. Secrets I didn't fully uncover until it was too late. We had 2 daughters together, Emily and Grace. Emily is 17 now, serious and protective, always carrying more weight than a teenager should. Grace just turned 15. She's sweet, creative, always scribbling in her notebook. They were my light, my reason to keep moving forward, especially after the accident that took Daniel's life. But what nobody saw, what no one outside our family understood, was that Daniel's death wasn't the end of my suffering. It was only the beginning. It started small. Whispers, disapproving looks from Daniel's parents, my ex-in-laws. At first, I thought it was grief. Everyone grieves differently. Everyone lashes out in their own way. But then the whispers turned into accusations, and the accusations turned into attacks. They didn't just mourn their son, they rewrote his sins, and they blamed me and my daughters for everything. I'll never forget the first time my youngest came home crying, clutching her backpack. She whispered, "Mom, Grandma said Dad died because of us." That was the moment I knew. Pause. This wasn't grief. This was war. And the day they dared to shame my daughters publicly in the market was the day I decided I would never stay silent again. Grief has a way of turning people into something unrecognizable. At least, that's what I used to tell myself whenever my ex-in-laws lashed out. Daniel's parents, Richard and Margaret, were in their late 70s, old-fashioned, stubborn, and in their eyes, their son could do no wrong. When Daniel died in that car accident, I thought maybe, just maybe, they would finally see me, see how hard I worked to raise 2 daughters while their son had spent years betraying me behind my back. But instead, they doubled down on the lie. It began at their house. The girls and I were invited over a few weeks after the funeral. I told myself it was for comfort, for family support. But from the moment we walked through the door, I knew something was wrong. Margaret's eyes darted past me, straight to the girls. Her voice was syrupy sweet, but her words were poison. "Emily, Grace, don't you think you should come live with us now? A proper Christian household. Not with your mother, she's too busy working." I froze. My girls looked at me, confused, almost panicked. I forced a smile. "They have a home, Margaret, with me. That's not changing." Richard cleared his throat, his tone sharp. "Sarah, you're single now. You work long shifts. You can't raise them alone. We can give them stability, God's guidance, I clenched my fists under the table. Stability, I whispered. You mean control. Later that night, in the car, Emily whispered to me, Mom, Grandma said, we were selfish, that if we loved Dad, we'd move in with them. Is that true? My heart broke. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, whispering back, No, baby, that's not true. You love your father in your own way. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Grace was quiet the whole ride home. Too quiet, the cracks grew wider at church. Margaret had a way of twisting stories, turning herself into the grieving saint, while painting me as the disobedient widow. I'll never forget that Sunday. We were sitting in the pew, heads bowed, when she leaned close enough for only me to hear. Her voice was sharp, venomous. You were never enough for my son. That's why he strayed. If you'd been a better wife, he'd still be alive. I felt my throat close. My hands shook, but I didn't respond. Not then, because Emily was sitting right next to me, her small hand gripping mine, and when I looked down, I realized she had heard. Her knuckles were white, her jaw clenched. That night she broke. Mom, Emily whispered through tears, if Dad cheated, does that mean it was our fault? Because we told you. Did we kill him? Her words sliced through me like glass. I pulled her into my arms, whispering, my own voice breaking, No, baby, you didn't kill anyone. He made his choices. He lived with them, and he died with them. None of that is on you. Grace finally spoke, her voice trembling. Then why does Grandma keep saying we're bastards? I froze. The word echoed in my head, ugly and cruel. Who told you that? I asked, my voice trembling. Grace wiped her tears, whispering, Grandpa. He said we were bastards because Dad was cheating, because we weren't wanted. Something inside me snapped that night, but I kept quiet. For their sake, for a little longer, because sometimes silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's just the space you need to gather strength for the storm to come. And then came the market, the day 6 women cornered my youngest, screaming at her in public. That was the day I knew my silence was over. It was supposed to be a happy day. Grace had just turned 15. Her birthday party wasn't until later in the month, but I wanted to give her something special. So we went to the weekend farmers market. She loved chocolate, homemade fudge, sweetbreads, the little stalls with jars of honey. I pressed a few bills into her hand. Go on, sweetheart. Get whatever you want. Today's your day, she grinned, cheeks glowing in the spring sunlight, and ran off with Emily trailing close behind. For an hour, I walked between stalls, sipping coffee, waving at neighbors. But when I realized too much time had passed, my chest tightened. I reached for my phone just as it rang. Grace's number. Her voice was shaking, broken by sobs. Mom, help me. They won't let me leave. They're saying horrible things. My blood turned to ice. I ran through the rows of stalls, past baskets of fruit and flowers, until I found her. 6 older women stood in a half circle around my daughter. Faces I recognized from my ex-in-law's church. Their voices were sharp, loud, slicing into her like knives. Ungrateful girl. Your grandparents are good, godly people. Shame on you for refusing to see them. A true Christian daughter would care for her poor orphan brothers. Grace's face was pale, streaked with tears. She clutched the little bag of sweets against her chest like a shield. Emily was by her side, trembling with rage. Leave her alone, she shouted. But the women only sneered, spoiled, just like your mother, teaching you to hate your own blood. Your father's death is on you. Both of you. That last sentence froze the air around me. I stepped forward, my voice shaking but sharp enough to cut through their chorus. Enough. The women turned, their eyes narrowing. One of them, Mrs. Hensley, sneered. Sarah, you should be ashamed. You're supposed to obey your ex-in-laws. That's God's order. My fists clenched. Obey? My husband cheated, and you all knew. You hid it, and now you're blaming my daughters? Another woman spat at the ground. Better a cheating husband than a disobedient wife. My vision blurred with fury. I stepped between them and Grace, pushing my eldest gently toward the cash register. Emily, pay for what your sister picked out. Take her to the car. Now, when they left, I turned back to the women. My voice was low, shaking with rage. Listen to me carefully. If you ever speak to my daughters again, you'll regret it. But they only laughed. Like vultures, circling prey. As we were escorted out of the market by security because the shouting had grown too loud, the women followed us, spitting venom the whole way. Shame on you. You're raising selfish bastards. Your husband would have hated you. I held my daughter's hands all the way to the car, but inside something broke. That night, after they finally cried themselves to sleep, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the wall. I couldn't take it anymore. The whispers, the accusations, the lies spreading like wildfire through the church. And then, a friend from the congregation messaged me. He was kind, apologetic, and he showed me why. My ex-mother-in-law had posted a long, weeping story in the church's Facebook group, a sob story about being abandoned, about how my daughters and I had left them homeless and penniless, how we'd turned our backs on family, and worse, she claimed the affair partner wasn't really an affair at all, that she had been our surrogate, that my daughters refused to accept their baby brothers out of cruelty. I stared at the screen in disbelief. My chest rose and fell with fury. She had lied to the entire church, twisted everything, and now the whole congregation was rallying around her, condemning us. But she had forgotten one thing. I still had the evidence. That was the night I decided silence wasn't protection anymore. It was time to open every closet, drag out every skeleton, and let the world see exactly who they were. That night, after I saw the Facebook post, I sat in the dark living room long after midnight. The only light came from the glow of my phone screen, still open to my ex-mother-in-law's words. They turned their backs on us. They are selfish, godless, cruel. Even their own father's death didn't soften their hearts. The comments rolled on endlessly. We're praying for you. I can't imagine being abandoned like that. What a disgrace, especially raising children to hate family. Every line cut deeper than the last. I turned off my phone, but the words didn't leave. They lived in my head, echoing, suffocating. I pressed my face into my hands and whispered to myself, voice breaking, why? Why won't they just leave us alone? The house was silent, but it wasn't peaceful silence. It was the heavy, suffocating kind, the kind where your own thoughts are louder than any scream. The next morning, I tried to smile for my daughters, tried to act like the market incident hadn't shattered me. But Grace's eyes were red from crying, and Emily avoided mine, pretending she didn't notice how puffy my face was from tears. I made pancakes. I forced cheer into my voice. Birthday girls don't cry, right? Today is still yours, sweetheart. But the bite of syrup-soaked pancake stuck in my throat like ash. The hours turned to days, and the silence grew heavier. At night, I would Lie awake, staring at the ceiling, the words from the church women replayed on a loop. Ungrateful bastards, your husband would have hated you, and worst of all, my ex-mother-in-law's message. If only my son were alive, he would have cared for us. I wanted to scream, to tear through the walls just to drown the sound of those lies. But instead, I sat in silence. Even at work, I couldn't focus. I would see parents dropping off their kids at school and feel the sting of comparison. Normal families, normal lives, and mine was a battlefield. And my daughters were collateral damage. At lunch, I sat alone in the staff lounge, scrolling through old photos on my phone. Pictures of us at the park, on vacations, smiling, whole. Now all I could see was the shadow of betrayal hanging over every smile. One evening, I found Grace sitting in her room, curled up in bed, staring blankly at the wall. I sat beside her and whispered, "Talk to me, baby. Please." Her voice cracked. "Why do they hate us so much? What did we do?" Tears filled my eyes. I pulled her close, stroking her hair. "You didn't do anything. You've never done anything wrong." But she didn't believe me. I could feel it in the way her body stayed stiff in my arms. And Emily? She had built a wall of silence. Homework, headphones, slammed doors. She carried her pain like a weight she refused to share. And I let her, because I didn't have the strength to carry it for her anymore. That was my collapse. Not the screaming women at the market, not the church lies. It was watching my daughters crumble in front of me, and realizing I had nothing left to give. I whispered into the empty kitchen that night, my voice trembling, barely audible. "I can't do this anymore." For the first time, I wondered if they had finally won. But the truth is, rock bottom doesn't kill you. It prepares you. And the silence that nearly broke me became the silence where my plan was born. The silence that almost drowned me slowly turned into something else. Focus. I realized I couldn't fight them with emotions. Not with screaming, not with tears, but with the one thing they underestimated. Most proof. It started with an old box I kept in the back of my closet. Inside, dusty folders, envelopes, scraps of paper I hadn't looked at in years. But when I opened it, my heart raced. Emails, printed text messages, screenshots of conversations my ex had tried to erase. One from his phone, sent to his parents. "Don't tell her about affair partner's name. She'll never forgive me. Just keep supporting me until the divorce is over." And their reply, from my ex-mother-in-law, "We understand. We'll stand by you. She'll calm down eventually. We'll make her." I sat there in stunned silence, then anger, then something sharper, determination. I pulled more from the box, photos of my ex, with her in our living room, on our couch, his hand on her belly while she was pregnant with the boys. I remembered the night I took them, how my hands shook, how I told myself, "You'll need this one day." That day had come. The more I dug, the more I found screenshots where his parents mocked me for starting the divorce, voicemails from my ex-father-in-law telling me to stop embarrassing the family, and the worst one, a message they sent to my daughters only 2 days after his death. "You killed him. If you hadn't told your mother about the affair, he would still be alive." My hands shook as I read it again, bile rising in my throat. I whispered into the empty room, "They'll regret ever writing this." The next day, while my daughters were at school, I drove to a print shop 2 towns over. I couldn't risk anyone local seeing. I handed over a flash drive with carefully selected files. The photos, the texts, the emails, the vile messages too. My daughters, I asked for the highest quality paper, sharp ink, clear images, nothing blurry, nothing deniable. When the clerk asked me what it was for, I smiled faintly. Just a little church reading material. That night, I sat at the kitchen table for hours, binder after binder, each one designed to look like the hymn packets our church handed out. Same size, same white cover, but inside page after page of undeniable truth. On the very first page, I placed a full-size photo, my ex and his mistress kissing, clear, undeniable. Beneath it, in bold black letters, ex-husband's full name and affair partner's name. A love story. I almost laughed at the poetry of it. Almost. When my daughters came into the kitchen, they froze. Grace whispered, eyes wide, "Mom, what is all this?" I looked at them, my voice steady for the first time in weeks. This is the truth they tried to bury. And we're going to bury them with it. Emily frowned, cautious. You mean, you're going to show people? I nodded. Not just people, everyone. If this happened to you, would you stay silent or fight back? Tell me in the comments, have you ever been betrayed by someone close? How did you handle it? That night, after my girls went to bed, I stared at the neat stack of binders. A chill went through me. For weeks I had been the victim, the weak one, the godless woman they painted me as, but now I had weapons, and soon the war would begin. The next Sunday, I walked into church with a smile on my face, and a box full of songbooks that weren't what they seemed. The binders sat hidden in my trunk for days. Every morning when I drove to work, I felt their weight behind me. Not just paper, power, but power has a scent, and predators can smell it. It started with a phone call. My mother-in-law, her voice too sweet, too sharp. We've been hearing things, dear. People are saying you've been stirring trouble. I gripped the phone, keeping my tone calm. I don't know what you mean. Her laugh was brittle. Oh, you've always been a terrible liar. If you think you can make us look bad in this community, you're mistaken. You'll only hurt your daughters more. Before I could answer, she hung up, just enough to leave me trembling. 2 days later, my ex-father-in-law showed up at the market. He didn't say hello. He didn't even blink. He just leaned close and muttered, "You better watch yourself, young lady. People who go against family don't last long." His breath smelled of stale coffee and bitterness. I forced a smile, lifted my bag of produce, and walked away. But inside, my heart raced. They knew something. That evening, as I packed school lunches, my eldest, Emily, spoke up. "Mom, Grandma messaged me on Facebook. She said she knows you're planning to embarrass them at church. Is it true?" My stomach dropped. What exactly did she say? Emily pulled out her phone. On the screen, "If your mother does this, you'll be the ones to suffer. Think of your reputation at school. Think of your future. No boy will want to marry you if you carry this shame." My hands shook with fury. "Threatening my daughters now," I whispered, voice breaking. "She has no idea who she's dealing with." The pressure only grew. That Friday night, there was a knock at the door. I peeked through the peephole. Rachel, my ex's sister. Her smile was tight, her arms crossed. "Mind if I come in?" I didn't want to, but if I refused, they'd only spin another lie. I opened the door just enough. She stepped in, her perfume choking me. "Look, I don't know what you're planning, she began, eyes darting around my living room. But Mom and Dad are nervous. People are talking. If you go through with this, you'll destroy what little family you have left. I forced a laugh. Family? That's rich. Where were you when they called my daughters bastards? Her jaw tightened. That was heat of the moment. Don't take everything so seriously. My voice cracked like glass. They told my girls it was their fault their father died. Do you call that heat of the moment? She faltered. For the first time, her confidence wavered, but only for a second. Then she leaned in, whispering, "If you humiliate them, if you humiliate us, you'll regret it." After she left, I stood in the dark hallway, my fists clenched. They were circling closer, sniffing out my secret. But they were too late. The binders were ready. The lies were ready to fall. That Sunday, as the choir began to sing, I slipped the binders into the stack of hymn books and waited for the gasps. That Sunday morning, the air was heavy, the kind of heaviness before a storm. I sat in the back row of the church, my daughters beside me, clutching hymn books with trembling hands. Inside those identical white covers, my binders waited, my truth hidden in plain sight. The choir began, voices rising. The congregation opened their books, and then a gasp, followed by another, pages flipping, murmurs spreading like fire. Through dry grass, on the first page, my ex-husband's smiling face, his arm wrapped around the woman he cheated with, kissing her in my living room. Below, bold black letters, his true legacy. The whispers grew into shouts. Is this real? That's not his wife. The parents knew? I watched from my seat, heart hammering, as the walls of lies my in-laws had built began to crumble. Faces turned, eyes cut through the sanctuary. And then all at once they turned on me. My ex-mother-in-law stood, trembling with rage. She did this, she shouted, pointing at me. This woman is wicked. She forged these lies to slander a good man, a good family. The pastor tried to calm her, but my ex-father-in-law stormed forward, his finger stabbing the air. She's trying to destroy us. She's jealous, bitter. She's poisoning this church with her venom. The room exploded into chaos. Some shouted at them. Others shouted at me. The hymnals, once holy, were now weapons of truth and shame, tossed and slammed on. Puny daughters clung to me. Emily whispered, voice shaking, "Mom, what's happening? Did we do something wrong?" Tears burned my eyes. No, baby, you did nothing wrong. Nothing. But as I held them, the in-laws' fury only grew. They pushed through the aisle, closing in. My ex-mother-in-law's face twisted, almost unrecognizable. "You'll pay for this," she hissed. "We'll take those girls from you. We'll drag you through court, through the mud. You'll lose everything," her husband added, his voice low, venomous. "This isn't over. You think you're strong? We'll ruin you before you ruin us." For a moment, my chest tightened with fear. What if they were right? What if their lies drowned out my truth? What if the court believed them instead of me? I almost collapsed under the weight of it all. The whispers, the accusations, the threats, the thought of losing my girls. But then I looked into their eyes, wide, terrified, trusting, and something snapped inside me. I stood, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "You will never take my daughters. Not while I'm breathing. Not while the truth is on my side." The church fell silent. All eyes locked on me. And in that silence, I felt the ground shift. The storm had broken, and I was still standing. But I didn't realize the storm was only beginning. And the next strike would come from outside the church walls. the binders had done their work. The photographs, the texts, the emails, they had spread like wildfire through the church.by Monday morning. The gossip wasn't just inside those four walls. It was everywhere. At the local grocery store, two women whispered loudly enough for me to hear, "Did you see it? In the songbooks?" I knew something was off. That poor wife and the daughters. Can you imagine? When they saw me, their voices dropped. One woman offered me a soft, pitying smile. The other just stared, as if weighing which side she'd believe. I pushed my cart forward, my daughters following close behind, their eyes down. They shouldn't have had to carry this shame. Later that week, at my eldest daughter's school, a teacher pulled me aside. Her voice was gentle but firm. "I heard some things, and I need to ask, are the girls safe at home? Do you need support?" For a moment, I wanted to scream, to say they aren't safe because of the lies, because of the in-laws who won't let us breathe. Instead, I swallowed hard. "They're safe with me, always," the teacher nodded, but the look in her eyes told me she already knew the truth, that the real danger wasn't me. It was the people still pretending to be saints. And then came the moment everything shifted, a Wednesday evening service. We weren't there after the chaos. My girls refused to step foot inside that building again. But word traveled fast. During the prayer circle, my ex-mother-in-law stood, tears streaming down her face. "We are the victims here," she sobbed. "Our son is dead. Our grandsons are gone. And now, this woman, this bitter woman, wants to tear away our only chance at family. She is poisoning this church with lies." But this time, not everyone nodded. Not everyone comforted her. One man stood up. Mr. Hayes, a deacon who'd been part of that congregation for 30 years. His voice was calm, but it carried through the sanctuary. "We've seen the evidence. Those weren't forged pictures. That wasn't a fabricated story. It was your son's sin, and you knew about it. And worse," he pointed a shaking hand, "you called those girls bastards. Children, your own granddaughters." Gasps rippled through the pews. My ex-mother-in-law's face froze, her sobs cutting short. Another voice rang out. This time, Mrs. Patel, who ran the church's youth program. I heard those voicemails. "Your words, blaming to teenagers for their father's death. Shame on you." And then another, and another. The congregation turned not on me this time, but on them. By the time service ended, the whispers had grown into outright accusations. Enablers, hypocrites, they drove their own son into sin. My in-law stormed out, faces pale, their perfect mask cracking in front of the very people they once controlled. I found out the next day from a friend inside the church. She called me, her voice shaky but excited. "You should have seen it. People aren't defending them anymore. They're questioning everything. Your daughters. People finally see what was done to them." I sat at my kitchen table, my hands trembling as I held the phone. For the first time, I felt something shift. Not victory, not relief, but possibility. That night, as my daughters did their homework at the table, my eldest looked up at me. Her voice was small, hesitant. "Mom, are they going to stop? Grandma and Grandpa?" I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Sweetheart, people are starting to see the truth. They can't hide behind lies forever." But deep inside, I wasn't so sure. Because when people like them feel the walls closing in, that's when they're most dangerous. And I didn't know it yet, but the more their masks slipped in public, the more desperate and violent their next move would become. The whispers weren't whispers anymore. They were open conversations, accusations. People finally saw my ex-in-laws for who they really were, but I knew whispers alone wouldn't protect my daughters. I needed proof, undeniable, unshakable truth. One evening, I spread everything out on the dining table. Emails, screenshots, handwritten notes from years ago. Even the binder copies people had returned to me after Sunday service. My eldest daughter came into the kitchen, eyes wide. "Mom, what are you doing?" I looked at her. My voice was steady, even though my hands shook. "I'm building a wall of truth, so when they come for us again, they won't have anywhere left to hide." That night, I called a trusted lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but one who had represented women in messy divorces against powerful families in our town. She answered on the second ring. Her voice was sharp, professional, but warm. "This is Michelle, Family Law. How can I help you?" I explained everything: the harassment, the slander, the manipulation, and when I finished, there was a long silence. Then she said, calmly, "Bring everything you have. Don't hold back. If half of what you're telling me is true, this isn't just harassment. This is defamation, child endangerment, and fraud." The next day, I met her in her office. I laid out the papers. She read them slowly, carefully, her brow furrowing deeper with each page. When she reached the emails, the ones where my in-laws called my daughters bastards and blamed them for their father's death, her lips pressed into a thin line. Finally, she looked up. Her voice was low, but filled with fire. "They wanted to ruin you in the eyes of this church, but if you file these, you could ruin them in the eyes of the law." Meanwhile, the church itself was splitting. One Sunday morning, a friend texted me live updates. "People are demanding answers. Some are asking why the pastor didn't speak up sooner. Your in-laws left service halfway through." People followed them outside, shouting. By afternoon, Facebook was on fire. Some defended them, of course loyal followers clinging to their lies. But most weren't buying it anymore. They were angry at the hypocrisy, angry at the cruelty. Toward two grieving children, my ex-mother-in-law tried one last time. She posted a long, desperate message online. "We are old. We are alone. We have lost our son, our grandsons, and now our only daughter-in-law has turned everyone against us with lies. She is teaching our granddaughters to hate us. We only wanted family. We only wanted love." But then someone replied, "Not me. Not anyone from my circle, but a woman from the church choir." Her words cut like glass. "If you only wanted love, why did you call to teenage girls bastards? Why did you blame them for their father's death 2 days after his funeral? Don't rewrite history. We've all seen the evidence now." The post went viral in our small town. Every like, every comment, every share was another brick falling out of their carefully built facade. One night, my youngest daughter curled up next to me on the couch. Her voice was small, almost a whisper. "Mom, people don't believe them anymore, do they?" I kissed her forehead. "No, baby. The truth is louder now, and soon everyone will hear it." But deep inside, I knew we weren't at the end yet. Because when cornered, desperate people don't surrender gracefully. They strike, and my in-laws were about to do just that. The night they realized their lives were collapsing was the night they decided to come after me directly one last time. The night came sooner than I expected. I was sitting in the living room with both my daughters, finally feeling a sliver of peace, when a pounding shook the door. not a knock, a pounding. My heart froze. I already knew. I opened the door and there they stood, my ex-mother-in-law, my ex-father-in-law, and two of their church friends behind them, silent, like shadows. Her voice was shrill, trembling with desperation. You ruined us, Emily. You humiliated us in front of the whole church. I stepped into the doorway, blocking them from seeing my daughters. My voice stayed calm. No, you ruined yourselves when you lied. I only showed the truth. Her face twisted, red with rage. Those girls, those bastards, they were never real family. And you, she jabbed a finger toward me. You poisoned everyone against us. Something inside me broke free. All the years of silence, all the insults, all the manipulation. I stepped closer. My voice was steady, sharp as glass. Don't you dare call my daughters bastards again. They are the only innocent people in this story. You are the ones who enabled a cheating son, who lied to your church, who blamed grieving children for their father's death. My father-in-law growled, his hands clenched into fists. If you push us out of this community, we have nothing left. I didn't flinch. Then maybe that's exactly what you deserve. Before they could react, a flashlight beam cut across the yard. My neighbor, Mr. Harris, stood there with his phone up. I'm recording this, he said firmly. If you don't leave this woman's property right now, I'm calling the sheriff. For the first time, I saw fear flicker in their eyes. My ex-mother-in-law hissed under her breath. This isn't over. But it was. They turned. They left, and that was the last time they ever came to my door. The fallout came quickly. The binders had spread too far. Screenshots of their bullying messages were posted online over and over. Even the pastor, who had once tried to stay neutral, spoke out in front of the congregation. We will not tolerate lies, abuse, or cruelty in this house of worship. Anyone who does not live in truth will not lead here. By the end of the week, my in-laws were gone. They left the church. They left the community. They faded into whispers of disgrace. One quiet evening, weeks later, I sat on the porch with my daughters. The air was warm, the crickets singing. For the first time, they smiled without fear. My youngest leaned against me. Mom, are we safe now? I wrapped my arms around her. Yes, baby, we're safe. Because the truth always wins, even if it takes time. When I think back now, I don't feel joy. I don't feel triumph. I feel clarity. For years, I thought family was about obedience, about sacrifice, about silence, but I learned the truth. Family is about protection. Family is about truth. Family is about love without conditions. And if you can't find that in the family you were born into, you created with the people who stand beside you when the storm hits. I didn't forgive them. I didn't need to. What I found was stronger. Freedom. If this story touched you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more real confessions. Would you forgive someone after such a betrayal or walk away forever?